Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you guys are new. So in today's video, we are doing my end of the month wrap-up video. I ended up reading 7 books in the second half of February, which is kind of amazing because it brings my total for the month of February to 13 books, which is probably one of the highest months that I had in probably like ever. I normally average 2 books per week. Sometimes 3, but having like 3 books every week is kind of amazing for me. I will not include any of the books that I have read in the first half of the month. I will link that video down below. And if you saw that video, then you know that I didn't get the best of luck in my books in the first half of the month, but I am happy to report that I pretty much enjoyed all of these books except 1. So that's 2, but 1. So overall, I'm actually pretty happy for my reading month. So I'm gonna get started. So the very first book I have read in the second half of the month is The Hating Game by Thorne. I had read that book when it first came out, like years ago, I think like 5 years ago almost. And I had really enjoyed that book when I first read it. And then I kind of kept seeing some buzz around that book lately, so I just wanted to pick it up. Because I think the movie is being filmed or is being released soon or something. So I kind of wanted to read that book again because I didn't really remember too much when I first read it. I will say though, in general, romance book I'm less critical of and I'm less harsh on them. When I read romance book, I'm not looking for anything deep or anything meaningful. I'm just looking for a really good time and a really fun time, and this book did exactly that. It's a really fun book, fun romance book. It is about 2 people who are up for the same promotion and they hate each other. And it's a romance book, so they obviously fall in love and it's their story. They both work in the publishing world, which I do think we see a lot in books, because I guess like generally the author writes what they know about, so they write about publishing worlds. But yeah, that book was a really good book. I really liked it. It made me want to eat strawberry shortcake, which I haven't still. But yeah, it was a really fun book. I really liked it, and I would recommend if you're looking for a really good hate to love romance book in a work set place. So yeah. So the next book I have to talk to you guys about is The Gilded Ones by Namina, Forna. This was one of my most anticipated book release for the year, and I was really excited when I got this in the mail. I actually pre-ordered it, so it wasn't a surprise. But I was really excited to start this book and to see what this book was all about. I do have a separate video reviewing this book on my channel, so I will link that as well in the description down below if you want to go see more of my thought on it, because I'm not going to go into too much detail here. But overall, I really like this book. I give this book 4 stars. It was a really good book, a really cool fantasy book about a girl who lives in a world where there are 2 types of people. There are people who have red blood and then people who have gold blood, and when you have gold blood then you are considered impure and you are outcast from the society, from the village. And then obviously our main character Dika has gold blood, and then she makes a deal with a woman to become a warrior and to protect the kingdom from these horrible deathstreaks, who are like horrible monsters who kill some people. Overall, it was really well done. I really liked it, and I would recommend, and I recommend checking out my book review if you want more information on this book. The next book I have to talk to you guys about is Honey Girl by Morgan Rogers. I also have a reading vlog on this book, and it was part of my Quick to Judge book challenge, so you can go check that video out if you want more information on that book. I thought that book was going to be a really quick, cute romance book, but it was not. This is much more of a contemporary / literary fiction novel, a coming of age type of novel. There is a romance book, there's a love story, but it's not a romance book. I really liked it. I think I ended up giving this 4 stars in the end. I loved it, and go check out my Quick to Judge book challenge if you want more information on this book. The next book I have to talk to you guys about is The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. This book, guys, was so good. I loved this book. I do have an individual book review on this book as well. Link will be in the downside below. Again, but yeah, I loved this book. This ended up being 5 stars, my very first 5 stars of the year, and also one of my favorite books. I want to say like of all time, but at least in a very long time. I loved that book. I kept hearing a lot of hype, so I was a little bit nervous going into it, because I feel like when books are very hyped here on BookTube, then they kind of end up being a little bit of a letdown because you have so like high expectation for that book. But this delivered on all points. This is about a guy named Linus who works for the department in charge of magical youth, and his job is to go to orphanage and to check out that they are up to code and up to par on everything and that they can stay open. But one day he is summoned by extremely upper management and is given a very mysterious case and classified case, and he has to go on this island where there's this orphanage where there are 6 magical creatures who are deemed very dangerous, and one of them might be a potential threat to the whole humanity. And that's the story basically. There's also a love story with the director of the orphanage, so there's a really great LGBTQ representation in this book as well. I love that book, and just go check out my book review if you want more information on this book. But if there's one book that you're going to pick up on this whole list that I'm talking to you guys about, this is the one. This was really good. This was really good. The next book I have to talk to you guys about is A Court of Frost and Starlight by Sarah J Maas. This is a novella between the 3rd book and the 4th book that just came out, A Court of Silver Flames. And I read that novella because people were saying that you need to read it if you wanted to continue on with the series and read A Court of Silver Flames, and you were going to miss some information if you haven't read that novella. So I ended up reading it on audiobook. I actually found it on YouTube. I think it was like a 6-hour audiobook. I listened to it like, I don't remember, but it was a really quick audiobook, thank God, because that book was so pointless. That was obviously a money grab from the publisher in my opinion, but nothing happened. It was so boring. It was basically a lot of shopping, a lot of walking around Villaris. It was so boring, nothing happened. I gave this book 2 stars. I'm happy I read it because now I can go on A Court of Silver Flames. But honestly, it was so pointless. Nothing happened in that book. It was really, really boring. And then the next book I read is Throne of Glass by Sarah J Maas. This was also part of my fairy tale retelling book selection, because apparently this is a Cinderella retelling, which, like, what? This was not a Cinderella retelling in my opinion. I think there was maybe one scene in the book that could have maybe resembled Cinderella, but this was not a Cinderella retelling. I don't know who came up with that idea, but no. But anyways, I did end up giving this, I think, like 4 stars. I ended up really liking this book. This book is getting a lot of hate here on YouTube, and I don't really know why. Maybe I had really low expectation for this book, and I think it was a weird book for me to read because I went in knowing a lot of the things that was going to annoy me, and they did annoy me. Like, Selena in this book is so annoying. I will admit, she's a pain in the ass, especially in the beginning, but since I knew that going into the book, it didn't bother me as much, I felt like. And also the love story in this book, I feel like wasn't that important. Like, a lot of people, I feel like, talk about this book mentioning the love story or the love part, but I feel like compared to like A Court of Thorne and Roses, this has almost no love story. I mean, there is a love subplot, like a love story subplot, but it wasn't that important. I felt like the love triangle wasn't super permanent in this book, so maybe that's me. Maybe I was expecting more because I read A Court of Thorne and Roses, but this was not as romance heavy of a book, I feel like. But yeah, I ended up really liking it. I will continue on with the series. I bought the 2nd and 3rd book. It's right there, and I even bought the last book because it was on Book Outlet for really cheap. But yeah, I ended up really liking it. I will say in the 1st book, the fantasy element are not super present, which, I mean, you know why if you've read the book. But yeah, I thought there was going to be more fantasy in this book, which in the 1st book, there's not too much of it. By the end, there is more fantasy, but in the beginning, there was almost no fantasy in this book. So that was something surprising for me. But yeah, I don't know. I really liked it. It says on the on here, it says fan of Game of Thrones and Hunger Games will love this, which, I mean, Hunger Games, I could kind of see why, I guess, but Game of Thrones, what? Like, I've read the first 2 Game of Thrones, and this is nothing like Game of Thrones, in my opinion at least. But yeah. And then the last book I've read in February is Crimson Mound by Rosamund Hodge. Okay, so this is also part of my fairy tale retelling month. This is a Little Red Riding Hood retelling. I read this book because I read Cruel Beauty years ago and I loved that book and I was really excited to read this book, but this was a complete letdown. I gave this book 2 stars. It was so bad. Like, I didn't want to DNF it because it was the last book on my TBR that I was reading on the last book on the last day of the month. So I kind of felt it was too convenient to just DNF this book, but I should have DNF'd it. It was so bad. This book is kind of giving me a reading slump as well because we are March 6th right now and I've only read 1 book. And I think it's because of this book. This book was so bad. And I couldn't really tell why, but I think I figured it out. This book has a very similar vibe to Cruel Beauty. It is a very dark setting, dark retelling, I feel like. I mean, it's YA, so it's not super dark, but it's a darker retelling. And in the beginning of the book, since it was so similar to Cruel Beauty, I kept thinking that we're gonna get some Cruel Beauty characters in this book, that we're gonna get like a parallel world. There are 2 completely different books and different like settings, well, not settings, but different world. But I think she just tried too much to recreate Cruel Beauty in this book. I think she just tried too much to rewrite a Cruel Beauty, since Cruel Beauty was, I think, pretty popular when it first came out. So I think she just tried too hard to kind of copy Cruel Beauty, and this kind of fell flat in the end. I was on Goodreads and a lot of people were giving this like 2 stars or DNFing this book, so I should have just DNF'd this book. This was a very typical YA with a very insta love story. I mean, it was just really bad. So yeah guys, that's pretty much it. These are all the books I have read in February, in the second half of February. Leave a comment below letting me know if you have read any of these books and if you enjoy them or what are your thoughts on them. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video and I will see you guys next time.